Again, I'm reading about George Washington today. You're going to listen to another story about George Washington, but I really want to read this one. The author, Caroline Crossan Giblin. Um, I this is a biography. A biography is written to teach us something. So Caroline Gilpin wrote this to teach us about George Washington. It's nonfiction. He was a real person. His life really happened. Nonfiction, all right? So I'm going to read this. It has quite a few chapters. I will not read the whole book today. Chapter 1, Who was George Washington? Growing up, teaching himself, becoming a leader. In his time, Mount Vernon, the making of a hero, War and Peace, 5 cool facts about George, very first president, home again, in his honor, and what in the world? Glossary. We all know what a glossary is. That's not a chapter. It's in the back of the book. It's going to give us the big words and tell us what the big words mean. All right? Glossary. And this one even has picture glossary. All right. Here we go. Who was George Washington? George Washington was the first president of the United States. He was a farmer, a soldier, and a hero. He helped America become a free country. And this is a portrait. There was no cameras back then. They didn't take pictures. There was no iPhones. There was no phones to take pictures. And this is saying what a portrait is, the quarter, a picture of or a painting of a person. That would have been a painting, yes? So he sat there and someone painted what he looked like. Growing up, here we are. That's his home. George was born on February 22nd, 1732, on a farm in Virginia to a large family. He spent much of his time with his older brother, Lawrence. Lawrence lived on a plantation called Mount Vernon. He was an army officer. George wanted to be just like him. A plantation is a large farm that grows plants for food and clothing. If you've ever been to Adams Farm in Walpole, that's not plantation. That's a farm, not a plantation, not big enough. All right, down here, a fun fact. George Washington owned more than 30 foxhounds during his lifetime. So 30 dogs, wow. Here's a caption about the home. George Washington grew Mount Vernon into a large plantation. It had over 8,000 acres of land. Adams Farm is 700 acres, not that big. Lawrence Washington was 14 years older than his brother, George. I wonder why George spent so much time with his older brother. I know he was older, but I wonder why he didn't spend more time with his parents. Teaching himself. Oh, so George had to teach himself. I wonder why he didn't go to school. Shall we find out? When George was 11, his father died. He had to stop going to school to help at home. But George read a lot and taught himself. When he was 17, he got a job measuring land to make maps. So do we know why he didn't go to school now? Yeah, his father died. Back then, you didn't go to school if someone died. You need to come home and do the work that person was doing. Here's a caption of the picture down low. Measuring land was called surveying. It was an important job, and George did it well. Could it also be why he spent more time with his brother, too? Yeah. I like how you guys are having the I wonders, the questions, and then reading to find the answer. George was brave and strong. He was very good at riding horses. This helped him become a great soldier a few years later. Picture caption. When George was just 23 years old, he was asked to lead the Virginia Army. This is a portrait of him in his uniform. So a painting of George in his uniform. One more, okay? Becoming a leader. There's your map. Down here, they were called colonies. These were the only colonies that became states in our country. Florida, California, Texas, they weren't states yet. People weren't living there really yet, okay? In the 1700s, America was not yet the United States of America. It began with 13 colonies ruled by King George in England, and we were one of them. We were a colony back then. We had New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And right there, that was not a colony. Not enough people living there. All right. And the person that ruled us was King George over in England. He said, and we had to do what he told us to do. All right. There is King George. I'll read the caption. King George III ruled England for 59 years. England is part of Great Britain. Wales and Scotland are also part of Great Britain. People came on ships to live in America. They wanted more freedom than the king would give them in England. What's a colony? What Americans' first 13 states were called before America became independent to Britain. So that's what we were called, colonies, before we won the war against Britain and became our own country made up of states. All right. I said that was the last. I'll read one more. You ready? In his time. Candles, veggies, ink, and feather. Let's find out. Many things were very different in the 1700s. Home. Many colonists lived on their farms and built most of their houses and furniture. They used homemade candles to light their rooms. So candles were very important. Food. Most people grew their own vegetables, such as squash and peas. They hunted animals such as deers and rabbits for meat. I know some of you have gardens with vegetables in it, but is it big enough to feed you for the whole year? And could you have a garden for the whole year? That's right. All right. So their gardens were much bigger and very important. Staying in touch. There were no telephones, no computers. People used feather pens and ink to write long letters. The letters took weeks to reach their person. Now it just takes days. Chores and school. Children helped with most farm chores. Most children did not go to school. They learned to read and write at home. They had to help. Farms were a lot of work to take care of. They had vegetables and fruits and everything, but they also had animals because there was no grocery stores back then. You couldn't go to Stop and Shop and say, hey, let's pick up some hamburger. Let's pick up some watermelon today. It wasn't like that then. So that's why most kids back then didn't go to school, where everybody goes to school now. All right, I'll continue reading. Take a look at social studies. It is about George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. Be thinking. These were both presidents. What made them good presidents? Because they were good presidents. What made them good presidents? Think of being a good citizen. We know what it is to be a good citizen, right? Maybe they had some of these characteristics too that made you a good citizen, might make you a good leader, maybe. Or there was other characteristics about them. Think about that. That's what we're going to talk this week in social studies about. You have a great day. I'll see all of you at 9 o'clock or after 9 o'clock, depending on when you watch this.